Some sounds stay trapped inside your mind forever, refusing to fade even when the years pass by. For me, it was the fragile, trembling whisper of my adult daughter on the other end of a midnight phone call, pleading for her life while glass shattered in the background. A primitive instinct took over my entire body, wiping away decades of civilian life and replacing it with the cold, lethal focus of my military past. 10 minutes later, I was pinning her aggressive husband down on his own kitchen floor, my weight securing his shoulder while the flashing red lights of police cruisers painted the walls. The arriving deputies did not see a vulnerable elderly grandfather when they stepped into that chaotic room. They saw the clinical precision of how I neutralized the threat, noting the subtle wrist lock and my perfectly regulated breathing under intense pressure. One older lawman stared into my eyes, recognizing the unmistakable muscle memory of elite tactical training, and quietly asked if I had served. I gave him a curt nod, confirming my retired status without uttering a word about the specialized combat units or the hostile territory that defined my youth. At my stage in life, silence is a protective shield, especially when you are actively trying to bury memories of a violent past. Before that fateful night, the rest of our small coastal community in North Carolina believed our family lived a picture-perfect life. My daughter, Julianne, had married a successful automotive sales manager named Garrett Vance, a charismatic man who commanded attention with his loud voice and pristine appearance. I desperately wanted to approve of him because Julian was my entire world after my beloved wife succumbed to a terminal illness over a decade ago. I consciously chose to look past his arrogant boasting and heavy drinking during family gatherings, convincing myself that every young marriage simply had a few rough edges to smooth out over time. As a 68-year-old widower who values solitude, I usually spend my quiet days repairing mechanical equipment and walking my retriever along the shoreline. The local townsfolk only recognize me as the gentle old-timer who sits by the window at the local diner every morning. They have absolutely no idea that I spent over 2 decades enduring the brutal realities of naval special warfare before seeking a peaceful existence. That hard-earned tranquility began to fracture during a holiday dinner when Garrett loudly mocked Julianne for slightly overcooking a meal, triggering a sudden, defensive posture in her shoulders that immediately raised my internal alarms. My specialized training taught me that microscopic human reactions always reveal the underlying truth of a hidden situation. Over the next several months, I watched Garrett carefully, noting how he constantly diminished my daughter with sharp, sarcastic insults masked as playful humor. During a casual backyard summer cookout, a heavily intoxicated Garrett attempted to belittle my military background, boldly claiming that old veterans routinely fabricate their combat achievements. I remained completely unbothered by his hollow taunts, knowing that men of his weak character desperately crave an angry reaction to validate their own fragile, deeply insecure egos. The true horror of the situation materialized moments later when Julian helped me organize dishes inside the kitchen away from our guests. I noticed a faint, dark bruise peeking out from beneath her sleeve, and her panicked plea for me to ignore it confirmed my worst fears. Later, that evening, I retreated to my workshop and opened a dust-covered tactical chest containing a relic from her childhood. Decades ago, I had made Julian memorize a specific numerical sequence to text me if she was ever facing extreme peril and unable to speak openly on the phone. The emergency system we created as a game became a terrifying reality when my phone lit up around midnight with her coded text. The secret sequence meant immediate danger, prompting 26 years of dormant tactical conditioning to surge violently back into my aging bones. I opened my secure safe with absolute calmness, driven not by a desire for vengeance, but by the protective fury that consumes a father when his child is threatened. Driving through the torrential downpour that night, my mind operated with calculated efficiency while I updated a tense emergency dispatcher on my rapid approach. When I arrived at the dark suburban property, the muffled sound of Garrett raging inside the house echoed across the wet lawn. Peering through the front window, I witnessed him violently gripping Julianne by the wrist while she wept amidst the shards of a broken mirror. I slipped through an unlocked patio door with complete silence, my movements fluid and deliberate despite the familiar ache in my older joints. Garrett did not notice my presence until Julian whispered my name, causing him to turn around with a mocking smile, completely unaware of the danger he faced. The arrogant young man took 2 aggressive steps toward me, which proved to be the most foolish mistake of his life. Before he could launch a strike, my natural instincts took command, allowing me to redirect his momentum and drive him face first into the hardwood floor. I secured his limbs with a precise restraint technique, utilizing controlled discomfort to keep him completely neutralized while he bellowed in shocked outrage. When the authorities breached the doorway moments later, they instantly recognized my tactical composure and took over the scene, placing the combative suspect into heavy iron handcuffs. As the paramedics tended to her minor physical injuries, Julian broke down completely, releasing years of buried terror into the fabric of my jacket. She stayed in her childhood bedroom for the next several weeks, slowly unpacking the immense shame that had trapped her in that toxic cycle for so long. It took time for her to realize that survivors of domestic abuse should never apologize for the cruelty inflicted upon them by insecure monsters. Through long conversations on the rainy back porch, we finally dismantled the emotional distance that had grown between us since her mother passed away. The legal system worked exactly as it should, ensuring that Garrett faced severe consequences once the evidence of his pattern of abuse came to light. Today, the heavy silence that once plagued our lives has shifted into a genuine sense of peace and enduring safety. I learned that being a protective father never truly ends, no matter how old your children become or how deeply you try to hide from the world. Standing together on the shoreline now, we understand that true strength lies in vulnerability, and our family is finally moving forward into a brighter, unburdened future.